Hello there, physics student. This is Mr. Chai, and the purpose of this video is to teach you the basics about Ohm's law and how to calculate an unknown using Ohm's law. Ohm's law tells us two relationships. First, it tells us that if we increase the voltage in a circuit, then the current in that circuit will also increase. For example, if we increase the amount of voltage attached to this light bulb by adding batteries, then the current flowing in that circuit would also increase and the light bulb would light up brighter. We've talked about the analogy of the voltage being the push that causes the current to flow in a circuit. In this analogy, it sort of makes sense that if the voltage pushes harder, then more current will flow. Ohm's law also tells us that if we increase the resistance in a circuit, then less current will flow. So the other part of this picture is the ohm character, making it more difficult for the current to get through the circuit. In an equation, Ohm's law is I equals V divided by R. V stands for voltage, which is always going to be measured in volts. R stands for resistance, which is always measured in ohms. And I stands for current. C stands for other things in physics, so they selected I because it used to be called intensity of current. And that's always going to be measured in amps. Let's run through a few examples of how to calculate an unknown using Ohm's law. For each of these examples, it would be a good idea to pause the video and try to solve it on your own before you actually watch the solution. For example, number one, we're solving for current. An Xbox 360 uses a 12-volt power source and has a total resistance of 0.99 ohms. How much current flows in the Xbox? As usual, let's start by finding our our known information in the problem. It says we have 12 volts for the voltage and 0.99 ohms is the resistance. Let's write that down as our given information. 12 volts is the voltage, 0.99 ohms is the resistance. Our unknown, it says how much current flows in the Xbox, so I'm going to write down I, which stands for current, and our equation, as was on the previous slide, is current equals voltage divided by resistance. Let's set up the problem by plugging in our given information into that equation. So for setup, I would write I equals, the voltage is 12 volts on top, and the resistance is 0.99 ohms on the bottom. And if we divide, our last step is to solve, so you divide 12 by 0.99, and you should get that the current is 12.1 amps. The second type of problem you might need to do is solving for voltage. In this example, an iPad has a resistance of 0.327 ohms and has a battery which supplies a current of 11.56 amps. How much voltage does the battery have? First, we have 0.327 ohms of resistance and 11.56 amps is the current, so let's write that down for G, our given information. The current is 11.56 amps and the resistance is 0.327 ohms. It says how much voltage does the battery have, so that is our unknown in this problem, and the equation is still the same. Current equals voltage divided by resistance. Let's set it up. Let's plug in 11.56 amps for the current, and let's plug in 0.327 ohms for resistance, which is on the bottom of our division problem. And our goal is to get V all by itself. We want to isolate V. That means we need to get rid of 0.327 ohms, and to do that I have to do the opposite. Right now it's V divided by 0.327 ohms, so I'm going to do the opposite, multiply by 0.327 ohms. And if I do that on both sides to keep it algebraically correct, then I'm going to simplify. V divided by 0.327 times 3.7 will simplify down to just V. And then I have to multiply 0.327 times 11.56 and I get my answer of 3.78 volts, which is a pretty reasonable voltage for a battery. Our final and trickiest problem is if we're going to solve for resistance. In our example, a flashlight with four 1.5 volt batteries draws 4.8 amps of current. How much resistance does the flashlight have? First, we have four 1.5 volt batteries, and we have 4.8 amps of current. So let's write that down as our given information. The current is 4.8 amps, and the voltage is actually not 1.5. If you wrote 1.5 down, then make sure you're reading that it says there are four batteries. And so 4 times 1.5, we're actually going to end up with a total of 6 volts. The unknown in this problem is resistance. It says how much resistance does the flashlight have? There's our Ohm's law equation, current equals voltage divided by resistance. Our first S is set up, so I plug in 4.8 amps for the current, and in our division problem on top, I put in 6 volts for the voltage. R is our unknown. I don't like having R on the bottom of our problem, and so I want to move it to the other side. I'm going to do that by multiplying both sides by R and then simplifying. If I simplify the right side, 6 divided by R times R simplifies down to just 6 volts, and then the left side simplifies down to R times 0.48. And now I want to get rid of the 0.48. It's being multiplied, so again I do the opposite. Let's divide by 4.8, and we got to do that on both sides, and then simplify. On the left side, R times 4.8 divided by 4.8 simplifies to R. And then on the right side, 6 divided by 4.8, we're going to end up with an answer of 1.25 ohms. Hope you have a great day. Hope you learned something about Ohm's law.